welcome to the Blossoming Together podcast. Today we'll be diving right into potty training.
Can't wait.
So Kirsten, before you start potty training, what do you feel like is the hardest part?
I feel like the hardest part about potty training is when a family is 100% ready. I feel like it's the first question I get in my parent meetings with.
When can we start?
When can we start potty training? And their child isn't quite ready. Like they're just not quite there yet. So having to explain to that family that we have to come back a couple steps.
Right, and especially when they first start, right? That's usually the first thing they want, right?
Yeah.
With the 2 or 3 year old, they're like, can we start potty training?
Yeah.
It is really hard to be like, no, not right now.
Right.
And I get it, right? It's so important. It's socially significant. It's so valid for them to want this.
It's one of the most important skills. It's one of the only skills that you're going to look at that's going to impact them getting into preschool, getting a babysitter, going out for a night out.
Right.
It's a very pivotal skill. And we just need, it's something that we need to prioritize, but there are so many things that we have to do before we get to that point.
Right. And they need to be potty trained to be in the most least restrictive environment for themselves, right?
100%, yeah.
So I totally understand why parents want to.
It's so important.
So what would you say is the right age to start?
When considering age, we should first consider our typically developing children. Most typically developing children, research has shown that they're potty trained from the ages of 2 to 2.5.
Kind of early.
That's so early.
Yeah.
Our kiddos at our center don't start until they're about 2.5 at the earliest.
Right. Or that's when we'll start thinking oh, maybe we need to keep this on our radar or start taking some data on this. But I don't really think I ever had a 2-year-old that I started potty training with.
No, I don't think so either. I think 3.5 was the earliest I've done. The other thing is so that's the research with typically developing kids. There's not a ton of research on kiddos with autism and when they're potty trained by.
Right.
Some research has shown potty trained by 4 is or starting potty training at 4 is ideal.
Right.
But the research is so slim that I don't really like to look at an age. It doesn't. The age isn't the most important part.
Right.
What we need to look at are those prerequisite skills and the barriers.
Definitely. What do you feel like some of the prereqs are before you need to start potty training?
Some prerequisite skills. One, we really need to consider ruling out any medical concerns. So I would first and foremost talk with the parent, ask them to consult with their pediatrician and just ensure that their child is ready. There's nothing medically that we need to consider before starting this. And then we should also, they really should be able to have consistent bowel movements. If they're not having consistent bowel movements, that's going to impact everything internally. And it's going to be a barrier to them successfully voiding on the toilet.
Definitely. So you say medical conditions that might impact it, but what medical conditions may a 4-year-old have that may be impacting their ability to potty train?
It depends on the kiddo and everyone's going to be unique, but you could consider, so some kiddos are prone to UTIs.
Oh, yeah.
And
you would never know, right?
You don't know. So I've had families who their child was having abnormal behaviors, just having really difficult times. And it turns out that they had a UTI, but they weren't able to communicate because it's such a private event. They weren't able to communicate what was bugging them. So UTIs are what to consider.
GI issues.
Any GI issues, if they have hard time having bowel movements, what's going on internally. That's a really comorbid issue with kids with autism. So that is going to impact potty training as well.
Right.
Some other things are spina bifida, cerebral palsy, other diagnoses, Down syndrome, and things like that too.
That's definitely really important to consider. Some other prereqs that are coming to my head, are following simple directions. If the child really isn't responding to come here or let's go to the bathroom, they may not be ready to start potty training, right?
They might have behaviors when you're presenting those, and then we can't do potty training when you're having behaviors. It's the most dangerous place in the whole house or in the whole center.
You don't want to accidentally hurt yourself in the bathroom, on the toilet, the hardest thing probably in your house.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm also thinking too, the ability to remain seated for up to 5 minutes. In order to have successful voids on the toilet, we have to be sitting there for a minute. We can't just expect them to sit and void. It takes them a minute to learn and understand what's going on. So we have to have consistent schedules where they're sitting for a duration of time. Can they sit for 5 minutes at a time without getting up or being disrupted?
And sometimes that's the first place I'll start. I'll have a parent reach out and they'll be like, we want to start potty training. I'll be like, have you guys gone and practiced sitting on the toilet at all? And usually the question leads to either saying no or no, they drop to the floor every time I present it.
I'm glad you mentioned that. So like they drop to the floor each time or any other like really challenging behavior.
Yeah.
We need to get, those are barriers that impact our potty training protocol. We need to get barriers and behaviors to like a lower level.
Right. Totally agree.
Meeting those needs first before we're like, okay, let's jump right in.
I agree. So going back to what I was saying, so one program I'll put in first is tolerating really the toilet. Like sitting on the toilet.
Yeah.
And I'll sometimes have to start for 5 seconds.
Yep.
Because that's all the learner might tolerate at first, and then like slowly increase up to 5 minutes.
I've even had to start like walking past the bathroom or walking into the bathroom and just being able to stand in there, change their diaper in the stall rather than at the changing table. Like you just have to, start early.
One time I had a client absolutely could not stand going into the bathroom.
Oh, gosh.
We couldn't even change her diaper there because the child was so used to changing on this like rug that they had at home. So the thing we did was we brought that rug back into the center and we paired the rug with going to the bathroom. Yeah. So we brought the rug into the stall, and that's where we just kind of made it like a safe space, and then we had him start sitting.
Yeah, and you made it familiar. So it's not so the bathroom is really intimidating. And
it's ugly.
It's ugly. There are so many sounds.
Yeah.
It smells like, hopefully our bathrooms are cleaned often. It smells like bleach and cleaning supplies.
Right.
Like when we consider our kids with autism, they have these sensory needs that are, they're really sensitive.
Yeah. I totally get that, and I totally agree. So are there any other things you might consider looking at before you start potty training?
I think those are the main ones, and you want to look at the kid individually and just assess where they are in their treatment and like what needs to be a priority for them, but is it able to be prioritized?
Right. So I know we were talking about some barriers, so some behaviors that might impact them in the bathroom. Something that was coming to my head is if the child engages in severe SIB, is starting toileting the best place to be when you're working on reducing that?
Probably not. It's not. And I had a family, I had a kiddo. He was younger, but a pretty large kiddo. Like he was just big for his age. He was tall, and he wasn't able to fit into diapers anymore. But he had severe SIB. So it was really tricky because I had to consider like, what is this family going to be able to do, but also the safety of this client. So we had to come up with a like safety plan for in the bathroom for this like reason.
Right.
But the plan had to be so much different than what like I would typically do.
Right. Okay, I love that. And then where would you start? Now we have all our prereqs, right?
Yeah.
And you have me, you say I'm your parent, and I'm like, let's start potty training.
Yes.
What do I need to go to buy? I'm gonna go to Target this weekend. What should I go buy?
First and foremost, we need to consider all the materials we need for potty training. So your number one thing, and I don't know, not everyone loves to hear this, we need underwear. Forget the diapers. When we start potty training, diapers are out the window. You can use pull-ups for bedtime, but diapers should be out the window.
That's so hard, right?
I know. Well, because it's messy.
Yeah. No one wants to clean.
No one wants to clean
their house. Getting especially if you have carpet. I feel like convincing a family with carpet in their house is so hard.
Well, think about their couches
and
their
everything.
Like the bed, everything. So it really stinks, but it's really important to start with underwear instead of diapers, because so diapers are made to keep the kid comfortable and dry. Like we don't want our babies and kids to feel uncomfy and wet. So diapers are really well made, and they make them feel dry. They're not getting that sensation when they do have an accident that like, ooh, this doesn't feel good. I should go potty on the toilet. Right. They're just comfortable. So we need to
I'm fine. I'm chilling. I don't need to go to the bathroom. Exactly. Or if they have an accident, they don't want to get up and leave their things because they don't know what's wrong, right? We may know like, oh, the diaper line turned blue. Now we need to go change. But for the child to understand that, it's too hard when they have pull-ups or diapers on.
Yeah, it's just too tricky.
Right.
And pull-ups are important for bedtime. Like please don't eliminate pull-ups for bed. You can't expect the kiddo to stay dry overnight. Like they are really necessary in that way.
Okay. So one thing I actually recently had like a learner, and we were starting potty training. That's what parents were most concerned about. What are we going to do? We have carpet. We have all this stuff.
Yeah.
And actually Dad came up with this idea himself. I was so proud of him. He's like, I'm going to go, we'll start this weekend. I'm going to go to Home Depot and I'm going to buy a bunch of tarp.
Oh my gosh, that is creative.
He tarped the whole house where they planned on like staying most of the day.
Yeah.
And then they tarped all their couches. And then he was like, okay, now I took Monday off and now I'm ready.
Look at that buy-in. Yeah. He's like, I'm getting potty training under wraps. We're doing underwear. Another thing like that kind of helps, and it, you know, depends on the kiddo how big their voids are. But I always say, let's get some big sweatpants. And I ask, I'm like, please, if you have them, let's use gray sweatpants.
Because why is that?
We want to look and be able to see if like when they start to have an accident, the gray pants are really easy to see, like when moisture is building. So when they're voiding, you can see the accident easier and you can get them to the bathroom much quicker. So I always ask for elastic waistbands. Let's not do jeans or leggings for our little girls at this time. We need something that's easy to pull on and off.
I get that. And then do you feel like, okay, say you see that a child just had an accident, you're working on potty training. You know, before I would refrain from that like language, like, you had an accident. But I feel like potty training is that one time where you may need to like label this bad thing that happened.
Interesting. Okay. So there's so many different like strategies we can use when like accidents do occur.
Do you say like, like you had an accident, and then do you take them to the bathroom?
I continue to avoid that like negative attention from it. And what I will do is I'm like, looks like we want pee-pee. Pee-pee's in the potty.
Yeah.
And I just keep it like simple like that. Like I like that you use simple language. And you're saying it in a positive way. So it's not like.
But I never thought about it
it's
like
not
that.
Punishment.
That it's negative. I've always been like, well, maybe we need to like talk about what happened.
Exactly. So we should be talking about it, like, and keeping it really simple. And like I've worked with speech therapists. We're lucky enough to work as part of an interdisciplinary team. So recommendations from speech therapists in that point was to keep it like 1 to 2 words and like, pee pee and potty. And then we walk them right there. We need to be there immediately. I did want to go back and not forget some important materials that we need to be getting at Target. What do you think?
Okay. I don't know if we should save this as the last one because there's some boring ones we need in the middle, like if they have any visuals, right?
We need some visual schedules.
If they're using any visuals, if they need a potty icon because they're not yet requesting verbally something for them to click, or if they have an AAC, making sure like the potty icon is on there.
Yes.
And then I know what you're going into. Go for it. What are we buying at Target?
We need reinforcers. What are we going to give this child when they have a successful urination? This is the most important part. This is the key. This is the key. If we don't reinforce the successful voids, we're not going to continue to have successes. So what are some reinforcers that you would buy at Target?
So I'm thinking needs to be immediate, needs to be delivered fast. So probably the only time that I might use like an edible reinforcer. But, you know.
Controversial.
Kind of controversial. But I want it to be fast enough where we don't have to clean up, right? And like move on before we even get it. So I'm thinking like M&M's, Skittles, gummy bears. I don't know. If your kid likes vegetables, broccoli.
If they're into veggies, let's do some broccoli.
Stickers. If you really don't want to go the edible route, stickers, a video. But even a video, I feel like.
Can we talk about it? Okay. So in my opinion, we need like a reinforcer that is delivered, but is like eliminated once it's delivered. We don't want something that remains because
then you have another issue to work through, right?
Now you took away
my
whatever it
was. I've had kids that will stay there and hold their pee and keep going to get the video.
Exactly. Well, and the other thing is when we like need them to like relinquish the thing, this item should only be for bathroom. We cannot, and this is something we have to talk to parents about and technicians about, is we
shouldn't be playing with it.
We can't be playing with it throughout the day. This is only, it needs to be so exciting and motivating. Like we don't want to get satiated on our potty reinforcer. Something that I find to be really cool as a reinforcer that's not edible is bubbles.
You blow them,
they're gone. And then we're like, okay, time to go wash hands. We're all done potty.
And potty bubbles, and they're easy to control. I feel like you don't come across bubbles everywhere. Whereas I feel like sometimes like the edibles, kids will get into them. Or parents aren't really willing to make it just the potty reinforcement.
Right.
I come across that so often. They're like, well, yeah, we can use Skittles. And then I'm like, okay, well, that means no Skittles anywhere else.
Yeah.
And mom will be like, well, we get a Skittle for this and we get a Skittle for that.
Exactly. Or they go to a birthday party and they're going to get a Skittle there. And then mom's like, shoot, my reinforcer's out the window. What am I going to do? So things that, like aren't going to be accessed all over the place.
Have you ever just told parents to go to the store and pick out a new toy? I had a BCBA do that once. She was like, this learner could understand that.
Yeah.
And he had this toy he really, really wanted. And they had been saying, wait till Christmas, wait till Christmas, wait till Christmas.
So it's like really exciting and something that they were thinking of. I like that kind of thing. I think that's a good option for kiddos who can understand it.
Right.
I also, something that I didn't mention for materials is I like to have an item that we use in the bathroom that's, I don't want something that's really stimulating because I don't want the client to get dysregulated or like distracted while on the potty, but something that keeps them occupied while, like we said, we need them to be able to sit for 5 to 7 minutes.
Right.
So what are they gonna like?
Like we play on our phones.
Oh my
when
gosh,
we're in the bathroom, right?
I'm
sitting
potty,
here scrolling on Instagram.
TikTok.
Now I'm there forever.
I'm like, oh shoot, I should probably like go live my life again. Exactly. Like they need something to do on the potty. So I always recommend like preferred books or this is when, if the child doesn't have a hard time with relinquishing a tablet, like if they have pretty mild behaviors and that's something that they're able to do, this is when I would use the video. But I want like low stimulating videos.
Right.
I don't want Baby Shark. Baby Shark is very like, we're getting into it. I want something that's really like low stim.
Right. Or even like pulling out videos about potty training. I know the Elmo potty training song.
Oh my God.
I love the Elmo potty training song. That's something I really like to use, or potty training books. I forget what it's called. It's like Princess Goes Pee on the Potty. We have it at the center.
That's a really good one. Those are good for our girls.
And then I know some parents are too scared to put their kids on the big toilet.
Yes.
So sometimes they'll buy little toilets for the house. That's or like little seats too.
Really smart. We really and that's something to consider with their, like, we'll kind of get into it a little bit later. Surprise, we have a special guest. But their motor needs, like, are they able to, like,
sit on the big potty?
Sit on the big potty. Could you, like, successfully void if your feet are dangling?
And no, my feet do dangle. I'm like 4'8". So I need a squatty potty.
Exactly.
Like I need my feet to go there.
We need to be comfortable. So we want those kids to be comfortable too in order to void.
Right. And one more thing I would say we need to start thinking about. I mean, you don't really gather this, but you need to pick a time that's best for your family to start potty training, or you even in the center, right? You don't want to start before they're going on a big vacation. You don't want to start when they're getting a new tech. Maybe like the next week. Yes.
Or you don't want to start if you're having a baby in the house soon. Are you
I know that's hard. That's what I feel like parents will come like, and they'll be like, I've had so many parents like, we have baby sister coming.
We need to get this kid out of the diapers before we have the new one in the diapers. Right. 100%. But when you have big life changes, that when life is unpredictable is not the time to start.
No.
When do you recommend to parents? Like, what are ideal times that you say, like, okay, we're looking into potty training. Let's take a look at our calendar. This is the best time to start.
I ask before a family has a break. So I like first I'll be like, I'll offer like, let's start in center first and work out some of these kinks before you start at home. You know, like I have the time to be taking this kid every 10 minutes.
Yep.
Where mom and dad might not. They have life 100%. To live. And you know, they'll still probably be going every 30 minutes when they're at home. So I want to start maybe like a month before I know the parents have a big chunk of time.
Perfect.
And then sometimes I'll ask like, okay, with this holiday's coming up, do you think you can take a Monday, like a Friday and a Monday off to kind of help ease your child into this? Yeah, and most parents are ready.
They're like, okay, I'll do anything. Let's do it.
They're like, okay, let's do it. Yeah. So whenever they have this big chunk of time coming up is when I try. But I know not everyone's jobs are, that flexible.
It stinks. And, we have to work with what we can get. But if they aren't able, let's do it on a weekend. I also like to look at if our kid's in school. Let's take a look at the school calendar. We have long weekends. Parents, they have to have childcare. So if they can get their nanny or their grandparent on board with the potty training protocol, let's do it on that long weekend too.
That's awesome. And then, I don't know, I feel like I wanted, not always possible, but like if we can do potty training in the summer.
Yeah.
We're like, you need to be out of the house. You need something going on where you can go take a break outside for your like mental health.
It's hard though too, because like, so yes, we need but yeah, I want it to be where we can get out of the house at our own house. We can go for a walk. We can get outside.
We can't obviously, going to Target right now is really hard.
Let's not go to this isn't the time to be going to big birthday parties. This isn't the time to be like planning a big trip to Chicago when you're driving from Michigan. Not the time.
No. So, I mean, it is hard, but asking them before we even start.
Yeah.
And I feel like it is one of the first questions I'll ask at intake. Like, when do you want this done by? And then kind of like going into like, it might take this much work from you. Like, when would you have this time available?
Exactly. And I think that's a really key point, is being really upfront with the family. Like, okay, this is a huge priority for you. It'll be a priority for me. But this is how long it's going to take. This is the effort you're going to need to put into it. And it's kind of a money, like you have to spend a lot of money. You have to buy reinforcers. You might have to buy new potty seats.
Who knows how much underwear you'll need. And then
because
laundry,
BMs happen. Are we going to wash our BM undies?
I know. We'll throw them away.
Oh, 100%.
But then I've had where parents will text me and they'll be like, "You threw away our underwear," and I'm like, "But my bad. That's a BCBA bad. I should have texted the parents and been like, "Do you want these?" And then if I don't know what they're going through, so
who knows? But yeah,
I get that. So okay, what are some other plans and things you need to prioritize before you start potty training?
Other like plans. So what do you mean?
Oh, like what else should say you're training me on potty training. What would you tell me? Like, I'm the tech.
Yeah.
And it's my first, I'm still a new tech too.
Okay. Cool.
I'm like 2 weeks into the job. You're like, we're going to start potty training little Johnny. Okay. What is the advice you're going to give me?
I would, let's make sure we know where our clothes are. Let's set up the environment for success. Let's, instead of keeping the clothes in the backpack.
In the stall.
Keep everything we need in this one location.
And not just one.
Oh, gosh, no. We need to ask parents. We might have forgotten to mention this. We need like 20 pairs of underwear, 10 pairs of pants. They're going home
with you every day. Please wash them.
And even bring 5 shirts. Yeah. You never know. Things could get a little messy.
Yeah, especially if you got the boys.
Yeah.
So I would, a little.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask my tech to make sure that they have everything that they need in the stall and have the reinforcer ready. If we're not, we'll get to this a little bit later too, but if we don't have the reinforcer readily available when they successfully void, what did we do all this for?
No, nothing. Reinforcers are the most important part of potty training. I feel like it's so hard to I feel like you're, as the tech, you're like, okay, they went, now I need to wipe, now I need to do this. Right. So you kind of miss that crucial step. Yeah,
you're going to miss it. So, and that I was going to ask you, this comes back. We'll talk about all the steps that we kind of ideally would do. Yeah. But with the technician, I always ask them to please, this is so interesting because they always want to wash hands first, but please deliver that M&M or that reinforcer right after the void. I know that that's a little...
That's hard.
They want to get through that routine.
I had a tech that was that's unhygienic.
Oh,
and he just couldn't get past the unhygienic part. I was like,
and I'm so grateful for him for being considerate of that, but also this is a huge barrier.
Can I have hand sanitizer first? And I was like, I'm sorry, no.
No, absolutely.
We need to deliver the reinforcer.
Then we'll get through that routine because what happens is we're delivering that reinforcer after the hand sanitizer or after the hand washing. We're not reinforcing the successful void. We're reinforcing the hand washing, which is cool. We'll get to that point.
And we might already be good at that.
This might be a prerequisite skill that we're like, okay, let's just get this under wrap before we start this.
I totally agree. So, and then also one thing I would tell the tech is keeping your language consistent, when it's time to go to the bathroom, instead of saying something different every time, phrase it as need bathroom. Just so that if also the client was going to imitate me, they had a good model instead of, oh, let's go bathroom.
And something going off of that is we need to talk about what language we're using around the bathroom. Let's meet with the family. So this was an early BCBA mistake I made is I chose the language for the family. I didn't let them know, but I was working on potty training at the center. And I had just started saying, potty, time for potty. Yeah. And then I was talking to the family.
And there was the kid going potty time.
Well, yes. And they didn't want their child saying potty or they wanted to use bathroom. They didn't like the term potty. Yeah. I'm not sure exactly why. Ick. Yeah, I gave them the ick. They said, we want to use big kid language. Yeah. So we really need to consult with the family. Hey, what language do you want to use?
Or what are they using at home, right?
Exactly.
Because I know... especially where we work, it's very diverse. So we have a lot of different languages. So a lot of like the parents will use a different term in their house. So using that at the center as well would be helpful.
Kind of going off of that, is there anything that you've noticed, like we work like with a lot of different cultures, have there been any cultural barriers to potty training for you that you've had to kind of overcome before introducing it or when introducing it?
Actually, yeah. So actually this family is also like, we're actually the same culture.
Okay.
We hold a lot of like those same values, and I still didn't think about this, right?
Okay.
You know, I'm like, let's get into underwear and then we'll figure it out, right? She needs to feel that she's wet. But the mom shared that she's not willing to do this because in like our culture and our religion, where you pee, like you can't pray. It needs to be cleaned very thoroughly. It's like a whole process. So she was like, I don't feel comfortable having her in in diapers yet, because if she pees, I'm not going to be able to pray there. Okay, and you know, that's her thought process, even though it might not have been mine. And we hold the same background.
And I'm wondering too, if like when you were going through your like practicum experience or your training as a BCBA, this wasn't something that you were taught to consider,
right?
As like one of the like factors.
Definitely. And then I felt like a bad person, being like, well, like, whoops, I should have thought about that.
I ran into that. I wasn't a BCBA yet, but I was a technician, and I was working with an older male who he had been 100% potty trained for voids, urination voids, but we were working on potty training for poop accidents.
Right.
And they, like within this family's culture, they used a bidet or they used a water bottle to clean up after. And I wasn't familiar with that. And Did
you know how to do it?
I didn't know.
How are you going to write a task analysis or run a task analysis for what you don't know how to do?
I know. So luckily I was a practicum student. So I told my BCBA and I said, I'm going home and I'm going to do some research. And I created a task analysis for how to do it. Right. But it wasn't something that like
came
culturally.
Easy.
Oh my gosh. I can
imagine you in the bathroom.
I'm trying to figure it out. Happening? How do I do this? What am I going to tell this like kiddo to do? Or like how am I going to show him? To do that. So yeah, those are like some of those things that we don't consider, or we aren't taught to consider, that we really should be mindful of.
That's true.
In the future.
I feel like as like a new BCBA, or like almost 2 years, okay, not new, but you know, as I get students, that is something I really want to consider teaching them, or just touching base, you know, just sharing these experiences that we've had and that we've come across to help them in the future. Yeah. So one last thing that I'm thinking that we need is an accident plan. Okay. That I feel like, you know, it happens. We're going to have accidents.
Accidents are going to happen. Yep.
So what do we do now that it's happened? So kind of talking about what language do we want to use. Okay. I'm totally against overcorrection, but I know some people make like the kid clean it up.
Okay. So
which I'm totally
not for it either. So when I write a plan, I do have my accident plan because accidents happen. You're right. I always tell them, first off, I ask my technicians to do dry checks every 15 minutes. And I'm hoping that this client is in a pair of gray pants or shorts or something easy. So we're monitoring, we're looking that way so that we're going to be least intrusive, but we're monitoring those accidents. And then otherwise, we're going to watch for precursors of accidents. Are they squatting? Are they going to isolate themselves? Because usually like when they're having voids, they're going to be alone. So when we see these things, I want to try my best to catch the accident before.
As it's happening. Or even
as they're about to have an accident or like while they're voiding, and go immediately like, potty, pee-pee goes in potty. Really simple language. Get right there. Once we're in the bathroom, having them sit on the toilet just to show them pee-pee goes in potty. Now we'll kind of get to the schedule that I use for potty training. But when I don't have them sit as long. So I use differential reinforcement or a differential schedule. And I have them sit for only 2 minutes while the technician or the BCBA or parent cleans up the pants and changes them.
That's also one important, like having a second person at home before you start potty training.
Yes.
You'll need a little help.
You're going to need some help.
And then, you know, if you can't, we'll figure it out.
We'll work with what we've got.
If you can, try to get someone there.
Like, or asking like if mom is on board and dad's not, or dad's on board and mom's not. We really all need to be on the same page because for toilet training to work, consistency is going to be key.
Right.
So when they have those accidents, I'm going to have them sit on the potty and I'm going to have the technician do all the work with changing them. I might have the kiddo pull up their own pants as part of their routine, but it also depends on their gross motor ability and their skills.
Right. So one more, like if I'm in the center and I'm like, we're starting toilet training, one thing I'll do is like, let's find the vacuum.
Yeah.
The whole center isn't, hardwood or like laminate. So let's find the vacuum. Let's figure out how to work it.
Okay.
Because I feel like that's hard.
Okay,
The first time I had to clean up a potty, I was like,
like the carpet
cleaner.
back,
I didn't know how to use it.
Oh no.
Like kind of going over the little things.
Teaching them those things that they don't expect. Or who can they reach out to? Like making sure that they know what team is on, like what team members are on board.
Or who can help you clean up.
Yes.
Who can help you grab, okay, say you did take your 5 pairs of undies in.
Yeah.
But now you had your 5th accident.
You're like, shoot, where do I find
extras? Or where do I find more?
Yeah, 100%.
Something of that sort. So going into the next step, now we have all this. What would you do now?
Okay, so now I'm coming up with my plan. My ideal plan has like 3 steps. Number 1, we're going to increase fluids. Number 2, we are going on a consistent schedule. And number 3, we're going to collect data. Data, our favorite. Yeah. So with increasing fluids, what I typically do, and it depends on the child's age and how much they're eating and drinking in general, but I try and increase the amount of fluids that they drink.
Right.
So what I aim for is we'll go to like the schedule next, but I try and do like either an every 30-minute or an every hour schedule. Within that time block, I want the child to be drinking 2 to 4 ounces of liquid. Now,
is this possible?
No, some kids don't like water. Some kids don't want to drink.
Right.
And
some kids know what it's going to lead to. I've had some smart kiddos.
Our kiddos are so
like,
smart.
no, if I drink the water, I'm going to have to pee, and then it's going to be this whole thing.
I don't want this whole thing going on. So some other things that we could give them to increase that liquid like consumption is popsicles and fruit. Those are really rich in liquid. So
healthy, not apple juice.
We're not doing apple juice. I mean, like if families want to do apple juice, Kool-Aid, cool, that increases liquid. But like ideally, sometimes families don't want to do that much sugar in a day because then bedtime's going to be hell for them.
Yep.
So I really want to increase liquids and I want to track how much liquid I'm having like the technician give the client during those periods.
Right.
Because when we like look at the data on my data sheet, I'm going to track, okay, they drank 4 ounces or 10 ounces so far, and they haven't peed since this like 2 hours ago.
Are they holding?
They're holding. Like, is that a medical concern that I need to look into? And then we go to the schedule. So I don't know what schedules like you go off of, but I always start my kids with a 30-minute schedule for the bathroom. So every 30 minutes, consistently on the dot, I have them wear a watch, use their phone, have like a stopwatch or timer, whatever they can carry around easily. Take them every 30 minutes, have them sit for anywhere from 5 to 7 minutes. Now, this is once we've met our prerequisite skills that they're able to sit. Right. Now, if we're still working on descents, they're not going to sit this long.
And they're not ready for potty training.
And they're not quite ready for that yet. So then we do like the 5 to 7 minutes of sitting on the potty, and we reinforce the sitting with verbal praise or a preferred toy, but we do not use that highly preferred PP reinforcer unless we hear a droplet go in.
So I feel like this is sometimes I struggle, like the droplet, right?
Yeah.
Like, was it enough? Like, do you change that? Like at the beginning, I might, but do you change your criteria after you revisit it? Yeah. Okay.
I had a kiddo who was like, we talked about this a little bit earlier. They're so smart. So they let a little bit go and then they hold it.
Give me that M&M.
And then they let a little bit go and hold it. So I would reinforce the duration, and this is really hard because you have to have a technician and a family who understands the plan really, really well and is going to do it consistently.
But that's our job, right?
But it's our job to teach them.
Yeah.
So I reinforce, I systematically increase the length of the stream of urine before I give the M&M. So say they consistently, like at first, yes, if they have one droplet in the toilet, I'm going to have a pee-pee party. I'm dancing in there with them. I'm giving them their reinforcer. Like we are having a blast.
Right.
Now, if it's 2 weeks in and they've only had one droplet each success, I'm going to be like, okay,
Let's need to revisit.
We can't give a reinforcer until they've extended that stream.
That's why I think it's so important as we're collecting data, instead of just having like intervals, like once they reach this interval, we're going to move on to this and never going back and looking at it.
Yeah.
Because I feel like as a tech, like, you know, now where we work now, there was this time, like I just had a bunch of data sheets and I was just told move them up onto like 10-minute sits once they reach this. We were stuck there for months.
So what is it that's like holding us back? Why aren't we like progressing through this? Exactly. Like as BCBAs, it's our job too. So we're asking the techs and the families. We'll come back to family data.
Yeah.
But right now, let's say we're doing an ideal world where everyone's able to do everything perfectly.
Yeah.
They're collecting all the data that I need. They're writing down when we went to the bathroom, when there was a void, and when they had an accident and when they didn't void. Now, I do my 30-minute schedule. They go every 30 minutes. If they went at a 30-minute, they didn't have an accident and they didn't have a void, I'm going to increase that and say, okay, they're pretty close to urinating. Let's take them in 15 minutes. Okay. So I have a criteria. If there's no successful void or no accident, let's take them again because we're increasing fluids. There's liquid there. I want to prevent the accident as best I can.
And I love that because it makes it so easy for, we understand sometimes, right? Like we know what we want, but it makes it so much easier for the technician or the family to know what to do, right?
Exactly.
Because you're stuck sometimes you're like, oh man, they didn't go. What do I do? Like I know it's coming. What should I do?
What do I do? Exactly. So it gives them variability in the plan. Yeah. We're a little bit flexible, and then we need to, once we have all of our data that's in a perfect world, they're marking the date, the time, the void, the accident, no void, whatever it may be.
Whatever extra comments you have.
Extra comments. Screamed 3 times on potty, whatever it may be. So now I'm going to go take a look at that data and see, okay, they had successful voids at these intervals. It might be time to move up if they're able to hold it. Like if I see that the child is holding it for an hour, I'm not going to take them every 30 minutes because the bathroom is going to be aversive. We need to avoid that at all costs.
So important to keep back and looking at the data. So, okay, I feel like at the center, it is very easy, right?
Yes.
It's their tech's job. They're collecting data for me. We have our clipboard. We have our pen in the bathroom. But, as a parent, what do you give them to take data on at home?
So I'm going to ask them in the meeting. Now, if they're bringing this to me that they really want to do potty training, I'm assuming that they have a ton of buy-in. I'm hoping that I've gotten a lot of buy-in before we get to this point. And I'm going to ask, hey, this is what my data sheet looks like. I'm going to eliminate these 2 columns. Can you just write down when you go, accident, no accident, void, no void?
Right.
Can you do that for me?
Okay, I said no.
Okay, then I'm going to say, I understand that this is really tricky. I really need to see how successful our plan is. What else can we do? Can you text me? Can you write it down at the end of the night when your husband's putting the baby or your child to bed? Can you write it down then? Try and remember. Because at home, they're not going to have that many opportunities to do this. It
might be easier for them to text you with the times. I feel like texting is usually you're in the bathroom with it anyways. You have your timer on there. You probably have I always take my phone in the bathroom just because I'm scared that's where something bad is going to happen.
I have to text people. So
I get it. I love that.
So I hope for that. Now, if they're really, really struggling with the data collection process, I'm gonna come back and just explain to them that this was their goal. I'm never going to do something they're not ready for. Right. And I might say, hey, this seems like a really busy time for you. And we can't have success unless I know what potty training is looking like. We might have to come back to this in 2 weeks. Is that okay with you?
Okay.
And if they say no, I'm going to be like, okay, how can we get some data? We need it in order to further.
I love that. And I love that you're being compassionate. You're showing empathy, to the parents. Okay, so what, I just thought of this.
Okay.
I've never had to potty train a child that was going to school.
Okay,
so what do you do with school's data? They're at school for so long.
They are in school for their whole, half their day, if not their full day, and they're coming to us at 4:30. I have asked a family first. I get a release of info form. I said, I need to talk to the teachers. Do you mind if I have a meeting with them? And if not, then I'm like, all right, we're going to put potty training on hold. We can't do this unless everyone in this child's life is on board.
Right.
And hopefully the family says yes. So I get the release of information and I asked to meet with the teachers and I explained to them the plan. Now, the teachers probably have 8 to 20 other students in the class. It's very hard. I can't expect them to do the plan the way that my technician is going to do it. So I'm going to modify it a little bit for them. They might not be able to do the whole underwear thing.
Right.
So
it's okay maybe for that long.
You know what I do is I ask them to do underwear underneath the pull-up.
Okay, so they still feel
they're still feeling the wet. It's not my ideal approach. Please try and do underwear first. It's going to a lot of research has shown it's going to result in more success. But if we can't, I want to make it so that this child can work on potty training across settings.
Right.
Let's do a pull up over the undies so they can still feel it.
And that's creative. I feel like you don't always come up with, it's hard to come up with solutions when you're sitting there thinking.
And when you're getting like nothing but pushback, not necessarily from the parent, but just there are these barriers.
Every other person in this child's life.
Yes, right? There are barriers. Grandparents are sometimes hard. You know, they might be their caretaker when the parent's at work and stuff. We got to get them on board too. And it's really hard when you get some pushback.
Right. It's important to ask those questions. Who's going to be involved? I would hope as like the BCBA, where the kid's going after or coming before. But you may not know like every Wednesday.
Or it might change.
Yeah.
Life changes and that person's childcare, their nanny may have quit. And now they have a whole new life going on.
Totally get it. I love that.
Yes.
So going into bowel movements.
Okay.
So I know,
let's get dirty.
I know, I know this one's so hard because I feel like we'll get a child, toilet trained and they're urinating on the toilet perfectly. We're at the point where, they're not in diapers anymore, but they're still having poop accidents or they're not fully, I wouldn't say they're fully potty trained because they're still having these bowel movements. So
they're urination trained.
Yep, they're urination trained. That's the best way to put it. But I like to remind families that, sometimes this specific skill comes a lot later.
This skill, going, especially with our kiddos as we're getting into potty training later, they're understanding the feeling of going poop. And
it's hard.
It's painful. They get tummy aches. If a lot of our kids do get constipated, it's just one of those like comorbid things that happen with kids with autism. It becomes painful to poop. Right. So then they associate that negative feeling with going. So then they hold it longer and you're not getting consistent. Number one thing that I like to tell families, we cannot target bowel movement accidents until they're 100% urination trained. It's not going to work. It's not able to happen.
Right.
So we have to wait until they're having success for urination. I like to look at like 2 weeks to a month before I start like really considering. Now, if they have successful poops on the potty, give them
give them everything. Give them the whole bag of M&Ms.
Give them the whole bag of M&Ms. Like I'm giving 2 M&Ms for a pee. Let's do 5, 10, 6, or 12, whatever it may be.
So one approach I take is, while we're still collecting all this bathroom, potty, urination data, is to start also taking the bowel movement data, right? Because we'll still need the data. And that gives me a baseline of, is this child pooping at a consistent time?
You need to look at the timing of it.
And then, if they're not, something you want to be poop trained.
Yeah.
Something I'll do is, okay, let's, when they're having a poop, can I have ABC data on it?
Yeah.
Are there any precursors before the poop?
Yeah. What is their behavior like beforehand?
Yeah. And a lot of kids, they do show signs. They're hiding. Their face gets red.
Yeah.
They're gassy.
They're holding their tummies. Yeah. They're pushing their tummy on like tables for that pressure.
So depending on the kiddo, it goes either or, I feel like. And then I use that to decide on what to do. If they're going at a consistent time, I'll be like, okay, let's just go sit. Kind of like urination data. Let's go sit around those times.
Yes. And then it's not telling the parents, it's not going to be anywhere near what urination looks like.
Yeah. It's not going to be as easy. But reminding them, we may just need to sit here for a long time. Maybe longer, longer than 5 minutes.
And that's why another big reason that I like to wait till you're urination trained, because
you're comfortable.
You have to get comfortable with the toilet. And there's a lot of research that shows that between like sitting for longer than 7 minutes when doing urination training makes the bathroom aversive, then we're not going to have voids at all. So once we get them urination training comfortable in that bathroom is pee party town USA, we're going to sit longer because we know that the goods come in the bathroom.
Right. And then what did I just say? I totally forgot. I just said, okay, so if I have consistent times, take them around then. Okay. And then if we don't have consistent times and we're working, like we just have the precursors, I say like, use the precursors to help guide you on when to go to the bathroom.
Sure.
You see it happening, take them straight there.
Take them immediately when you're seeing those. I agree.
Drop everything, go to the bathroom.
Something else that's really interesting is our bodies are really cool. And they have like these times that we're more inclined to go to the bathroom. So taking advantage of those. We're more inclined to have bowel movements when right when we wake up in the morning and after we're standing up for the first time.
Right.
or between like 30 minutes to 45 minutes after a meal.
Yeah.
So using those times to your advantage when you're taking your child to the bathroom first thing in the morning, because you should be when like after they wake up to practice that potty training and having that urination, then we might sit a little bit longer to try and catch that bowel movement. Or when you're planning meals, plan for a little bit extra time when you finish that meal.
Right.
Let's like let them have some 30 minutes, 45 minutes of downtime and start sitting on the potty. So using like our biological clock as, you know, for us.
That's perfect. I love that. And then I kind of have like funny story to share.
Gosh. Oh, no.
Not funny story. I don't know. I would say it's like my most successful story, actually.
Oh, I'm excited.
Yeah. So I used to have a client and he was fully could urinate on the potty whenever he needed to, but he really struggled with the bowel movements.
Okay.
He wasn't even going in a pull-up. That's how hard it was for this family.
Oh, buddy.
So what the family was resulting to was they were using a suppository when every time they saw like the precursors, or it'd been a few days, right? Like he was backed up there, like he needs to poop.
Or he's going to have a digestive issue.
Yep. So then they were using suppository, and like no parent wants to do that, you know, and it's hard. Fun. But, you know, that's kind of what their life was at that point.
Yeah, they had to do it.
Yeah, they had to do what they had to do. But, you know, we as a team kind of like talked about what precursors do we see for this child. And for him, same thing. He would hold his stomach and he was very gassy.
Oh, buddy.
And you would kind of see like an increase in behaviors too. And not his regular occurring behaviors.
Yeah.
They were different.
He was in a little bit of pain.
Yeah, he was in a little bit of pain. So he would run around and look very different than all his other behaviors. So one day, like his BCBA just said, okay, just take him to the bathroom next time you notice that. Okay. So, you know, it happened and I was just like, okay, let's go. Let's go to the bathroom. And, you know, we sat down and he pooped like for the first time ever on the toilet. And I kid you not, it was less than like the size of my fingernail, maybe.
Pinky nail.
My pinky nail. But, you know, he did it. And then, you know, like, he loves social praise. So, like, you know, everyone upstairs probably heard me cheering for him. But then after that, like, we're still in the bathroom cheering him on. And I texted his BCBA. And she's like, take a picture of it. So I took a picture of the poop. I still have it, you know, to this day.
Oh,
but
my
then
gosh.
And then we took it with us everywhere and showed everyone.
His social praise.
Yeah, social praise. Like, look, and he was telling everyone, I went poop on the potty.
Oh, my gosh.
And then he took it home. And, like, you know, he had this whole party at home, too. And
that's so cute.
It was like, I don't know, it was the thing he needed because after that day, they never had to use the suppository again. And
he just needed to know it was so reinforced. Yeah, he wasn't getting enough reinforcement for the poop.
No, he wasn't. And he didn't know what to do maybe. He just needed to connect that stuff. So then he started pooping on the toilet. Going forward, you know, he did still like only poop with people he was comfortable with. You know,
I
also like I don't like to poop at work.
Oh my gosh, no, I never do.
So same thing there. Like they probably don't want to poop where the stall's open. That's okay too. So I like to remind them, you know, it may not happen at the center. It may be something you guys just do at home for now.
And I like to really think about our like kids' dignity when we are considering potty training. Something, I was working on potty training with a kiddo once and the technician noticed that. So we like to like give that verbal praise when they're sitting on the potty for like successful sitting. Like, oh my gosh, you're sitting so nicely. She noticed that when she would give that verbal praise, his behaviors would increase and there would be less success. So we came up with the idea to turn away from the child while they were sitting on the potty. We wanted to be in the bathroom because this child had pretty dangerous behaviors, but we wanted to give him that privacy because like you said, everyone wants a little bit of privacy in the bathroom.
Especially when you're naked, you're doing this weird thing.
It's all new. You don't know what you're doing. So you're doing new things naked. It's very uncomfortable.
And who knows like what language they've heard around. I mean, I think about it now. I'm like, I changed my daughter's diaper and I'm like, P.U.
You stink. Yeah.
I just thought of that just now.
Maybe I should stop.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Stop too.
Thanks for the reminder.
Oh my God.
But so like with that, so she would turn away from him and just she would either like collect her data or like pretend to be on her tablet so that he had this privacy in the bathroom. And I think it's something to consider. Some kids might be able to, you can stand outside at the stall and just listen for the droplets.
Right. You don't need to be there staring at them.
Like that's so much pressure. We don't want to put pressure on the potty. This area needs to be we want to think about happy, relaxed, and engaged. They should be HRE before we were doing like expecting potty successes.
All right. So Okay, we talked about bowel movements. Now another hard one. Overnight successes or overnight, like taking yourself to the bathroom in the middle of the night.
Yes. So it's really tricky.
Yeah.
And the number one thing is this isn't going to happen when successful voids are happening during the day. This success is it might take, along with the bowel movements, this also is going to take a while, and that's okay.
Right.
One, they're sleeping.
Yeah.
Like that's really tricky. But there are some things that we can do like to increase that success once they do have successful success in the day.
Right.
I don't know what you're thinking. So overnight, what do you look at to kind of promote success?
So one thing I do is kind of stop fluids. I would say maybe 2 hours before I'm putting them to bed. That's 100%. One thing I try to look for. Do you have anything else you personally would start looking for or start doing? Yeah,
I would explain a little bit to the family that we can't start expecting the success until they're 100% trained during the day for, I would say, 3 weeks. And then we can kind of start looking into that nighttime.
Right.
So like you said, avoiding fluids right before bedtime. Kids wake up in the night. I'm sure we're learning. Our newborns and infants now wake up all the time.
Multiple times a night.
As I've talked to parents, this continues throughout their like toddlerhood. So when they're waking up in the night, just to like come get comfort, taking them to the bathroom immediately and sitting during that time.
Right.
And also sitting immediately when they wake up the next morning.
Okay. And one other thing I like to consider or tell them is try to keep your bedtime and your wake up times consistent.
Has to be.
It has to be consistent even on the weekends and even on those holidays.
It's tricky.
And it's hard. It's like, I want to sleep in.
What if you go to grandma's house?
I want to sleep in, but no, we're getting up at 8.
Yes, we have to do it.
We're working on this hard thing. We're getting up at 8.
I love that. That's perfect. Yeah, so we need, keeping them in line with that.
Right. Any other things coming to mind? I don't think anything else is coming to my mind.
Not to me. I think for like once we start to see that overnight success, then we want to, like we kind of talked about, we need underwear. So we're going to still use our pull-ups overnight, but when we're considering underwear for the nighttime, we want to wait to introduce those until we're having 2 straight weeks of no accidents overnight. And then we can be like, okay, let's gently introduce underwear. If we start to see an accident with the underwear, then we're going to fade back a little bit.
Okay. That's smart. I like that. So one more thing that I kind of want to touch base on before we kind of get our special guest.
Ooh, I can't wait.
Is the interdisciplinary approach, right?
Yes.
You know, we're BCBAs.
Yeah.
We're pretty good with like reinforcement, figuring out schedules, data. But there's so much more to a child that we may need to consider. And, you know, we're lucky enough where we have a speech path that we can talk to or an OT we can talk to. What are some helpful tips or things an OT has told you that you've taken into your potty training?
Yeah. Some things I really have learned a lot from our OTs and even speech therapists with like regards to language, but I'll talk more on like the motor concerns first. I've learned a lot about our kids' motor abilities, and one like tip that always sticks in my mind, and we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, like with the small potties. We want our kids' feet to be like touching the ground. Like if we're expecting our big kid or a little kid to sit on a big potty, their feet are dangling and their body is moving around. They don't have that core strength yet to like hold themselves up on the toilet. So when they're sitting on the potty like that, they are using all of their muscles to hold themselves up. So they're really, really clenched. They are not going to be able to successfully void because they're not like comfortable in releasing their muscles. So let's use a stool. If we have the ability, let's use a small potty. If we're at like our center, we're lucky we have like the rails on the side so they can hold on so that they can like really support their core.
Right.
So that is something I've really like learned.
They even make those toilet seat covers now that you can get the rails with.
Rails on the side
are really helpful.
So we really want to consider our kids' motor ability. Something else is, and I think we'll ask our special guest to speak more on it. We can wait. Just get excited. There's surprise content coming soon.
I think let's wait for that special part. But I think you already mentioned the sensory components of what's happening in the bathroom. There's a lot of smells. The lighting's a little different. The fumes of the soap, lotion. If you're at like a public place, other diapers.
the sound of those dryers in public places. It's a very scary place.
And the toilet. Flushing the toilet.
Oh my gosh. It's a whole thing. Some kids love it and do it too much where they're like, we're using that as the reinforcement. Other kids, it's overstimulating for them and really dysregulating. I've also learned a lot from speech therapists that we've worked with on how to promote language in the bathroom. So I think we touched on it a bit earlier, but really minimizing language. We don't want to use these big, long phrases. You had an accident. Pee-pee goes in the potty. Right. Let's go walk to the bathroom. No, we need to keep it really simple every time we go to the bathroom. Pairing, if our child is using an AAC, if they're using sign language, pairing that one word request with the bathroom.
Yeah.
I think a big focus that we've put on, and before I came to work at an interdisciplinary approach.
Making them say it before they go in?
Initiating.
Yeah.
If they don't have success on the potty, they're not going to initiate it. They don't know what that means.
Right.
So I've learned a few strategies to just kind of promote the language before we expect initiations. So we want to model. And something that speech therapists have told me is using the rule of threes.
Okay.
So before we expect a child to imitate us, we're not going to say potty, say potty, say potty, and expect them to say it.
Right.
I
just need to model without expectation first, right? Just
it's not in their repertoire. Yeah. So say you as the BCBA or the technician or parent are going to just yourself be like potty, and then give them 5 seconds to respond. If they don't, model it again, potty, as you're walking. And then if they don't model or if they don't imitate you, there's no pressure taking them to the bathroom, and that's fine.
That's fine. And the last one might be when you're at the bathroom, right? Saying it potty and then going inside.
And then going in without, and then I'm not going to give them that 5 seconds at that point. I'm just going to let them go in and not hold them to that expectation.
Another thing is, I think, honoring all forms of communication, right? Just because the child has an AAC, not having them use that only. If they said potty, we don't need to go get our tablet and say potty,
Or if they have verbal language, but they're pointing to the potty, that is them telling you, I got to go. Honor that. Don't be like, okay, now I got to practice verbal language. Nope. They're telling you they got to go. We're running.
And reinforce that. That's really important too. Reinforcing that. And if they did initiate anyway, reinforcing it.
Yeah.
I feel like that gets lost in the let's get to the bathroom,
Yeah.
And if you had an accident on the way there, but you told me you needed to go, which is so big.
Yeah. Right? I 100% agree. We're going to honor all that communication and reinforce it. It's big that they're starting to show those little signs for us.
And then I know we talk about all forms of communication. Something I've seen around our center or something I tell people to do at home is printing out just potty icons.
Little icons.
And just sticking them everywhere just in case.
Yep, icons and a little visual schedule, not expecting them to follow it in the bathroom, but what is going to happen in the bathroom so that we're helping them with those expectations. We're going to sit on the potty, we're going to wash our hands, and then we're going to leave.
All right, I love that.
Yeah.
And then lastly, since we do work in this interdisciplinary environment, what is your big takeaway as BCBA?
My biggest takeaway, so you noted, we are lucky. We work as an interdisciplinary team. We have speech and OT people near us at all times. We can just pop in and ask them for help. Please seek guidance from your clients, OTs and speech therapists, and get that what they're recommending to do for this kiddo. It's really, really important. They have a lot of knowledge about the client that we may not be seeing from our ABA lens.
Right.
So really just having that open line of communication. I hope you have your release of information signed and you are consulting with your clients, speech, OT, and pediatricians as well.
Amazing. So let's start wrapping up. We're going to take a short break and we're going to go grab our special guest.
We can't wait. All right. So I am so excited. We are lucky enough to have Katie Fisher here. She is the regional occupational therapist that I've worked with for, I would say, about 2 years now. She has shared so much knowledge with me about motor ability considerations for some of our kiddos. So I just wanted to get some of her input on how these things will impact our toilet training. So Katie, could you tell us a little bit about what introception is and how it might impact a child's ability to start toilet training or go to the bathroom?
Absolutely. So from an occupational therapy standpoint, right, we have all these different senses. Introception interoceptive system is like the hidden sense. It's our eighth sense where we can't really observe it from the outside, but it's the things that are going on internally. So we think about feeling pain, hot, cold. Are we hungry? Are we tired? And then, of course, do we have to go to the bathroom?
Yeah.
And a lot of times our autistic clients have sensory processing challenges. And when we have sensory processing challenges, it's really hard to detect that interoceptive system.
Okay.
So that then can impact, like, is my bladder full? Do I need to go to the bathroom, or is it empty? Do I not need to go to the bathroom?
Yeah. So they struggle to feel those like feelings on like internally.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So that internal sense is, in a sense, it's like, it's not firing exactly right. And so they need support with that system in order to be like, yeah, I do have to go to the bathroom.
So for some of our ABA listeners, I would explain this as those private events that we look at. So private events in our community are those behaviors that happen internally that is unobservable from the outside world. So for anyone listening who is from that ABA standpoint, that's kind of how you can like look at interoception. Something else that I wanted to ask are like, what is a prerequisite skill that you would suggest to a BCBA to look into when we're considering like our clients' motor abilities and challenges in that sense?
Okay. So it's definitely good to check in with if you're working with an occupational therapist and ask about their postural stability. Fine motor control is also another helpful like status to know, because we have to figure out, do we have enough hand strength to get the pants down, if they have buttons and zippers, those kinds of things. But then our postural stability is, how well do we stay upright against gravity, and how well can we balance while sitting on a toilet?
Yeah.
And a lot of our toilets are set up, there's not like a handle to hold on to. So
especially like in the home setting.
Yeah, exactly. And in the home setting, we tend to have toilets that are higher off the ground. So if we have a hard time staying up against gravity, then they're going to feel even more uncertain being on top of a potty. And then that increases anxiety, which can increase dysregulation. And once we're in a dysregulated state, it's really hard to just relax enough to use the potty. So I would definitely ask about those two things in particular.
Yeah.
And then, I think one other thing too is important when we think about the ergonomics of the potty is to make sure that the kiddo's feet touch the floor, because when their feet touch the floor, they can have more stability.
That makes sense. I know we were talking about it a little bit before we started filming. I'm really small, so in this chair, like my feet don't reach the floor, and you're sitting like so much more upright because you said that you have to like have that like when you're sitting. So these are things that we should consider for our kids too.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes we don't think about it because it's easy for us. Yeah, and we can adjust. It's not so easy when you have sensory processing challenges to just make those adjustments quickly.
Yeah. Now, if I were to ask you to have like joined a parent meeting with me, and like the parent is really set on starting potty training and they might not have some of these like motor ability skills, is there anything that you would recommend that BCBAs can work on to support it and like modify the environment in the bathroom to kind of help with it? If like parent is dead set, we have to really do this for like they have to go to preschool and they can't start preschool unless they're potty trained, things like that.
Right. I definitely think that looking at, if maybe they're not quite ready for potty training, parents really want to get it started. I would start with just kind of hanging out in the bathroom, making sure that we're comfortable flushing the toilet, pulling the toilet paper, just making the environment very calming, I guess, in a way, because sometimes the bathroom itself cannot be very calming, right? With lots
100%.
of lights, noises, sounds, all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
So then you could get one of the potties that have the handles on the side, which could be helpful.
Yeah, those little stools.
I know, like at our clinic, and this could be more like if you're out in the community, right? How they have the bar that's there. So I think maybe I've told you this,
we've talked about it a little bit.
Like turn the kiddo and have them sit sideways on the toilet, and then they can grab onto the bar because then they have full stability as they're there. Stool for the feet, so swing it wherever they need it.
So if they're sitting sideways, they can like still reach that, but then they can reach the bar as well.
Yeah. So make sure that they're stable, and if you have the ability to use a little potty. I know we do in our clinics.
Yeah.
I mean, that's helpful. And I don't see anything wrong with using the potty training toilets too.
That's good to know.
I can't remember. I think I worked with a kiddo where it was too hard. The toilet was just too hard. But once we moved it to the floor.
Yeah.
And again, now you have all this stability when you're on the floor.
Yeah.
And practice down there first.
And then like once they like master it there and they're having successful voids, then we can like try graduating to that larger toilet. And then explaining that to parents too, because parents are going to be like, well, what if they only want to potty on this like tiny potty for the rest of ever? It's like, no, we can fade that. It can happen.
Yeah. Because they won't. They'll grow out of it. They'll get too tall and it will be uncomfortable.
They're like, this is not comfy anymore. Let's do the next step. That's really good to consider. And then I guess something I just generally want to know how or what you would tell BCBAs in general to consider, like what if they're not 100% able to collaborate or they're not able to reach out to their own OTs, what are some things, like some tips and tricks that you would share to make this a little bit more successful when considering their needs?
So I would definitely encourage them to look up interoceptive system. Okay. And I know I gave you like a good resource and we've talked about, I think it's Kelly Mahler is her name. Yes. But if not, if you're not going that route, I would definitely watch for, you first want to look at regulation, because if we're not regulated, then we cannot access our communication system and we're not in an optimal learning state and nothing's going to happen. So even though sometimes we want to like push through that dysregulated state and be like, no, you can do it. I would stop, leave, reset. Yeah. Try it again. So hanging out in the bathroom, making sure it's regulating and it's safe. Okay. Right? It feels safe in there and comfortable. After that, making sure they have a good communication tool. If they're non-speaking, then maybe they have an AAC device. If not, maybe there's some picture icons and visuals that you can utilize 100%. in the bathroom. And then, like I said, I think then the stability on the potty. It's so like making sure that the environment is set up well.
Okay. That's really, really helpful. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We're so lucky to have you.
Well, thank you very much.
I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Take care.
Thank you. See you. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you want your CEU credits, go to our website at blossomchildrencenter.com.
Talk to you later.
See you.